Have you ever driven past a massive new skyscraper, one of those giant glass towers, and just thought to yourself, how on earth does something like that get paid for? We're talking about huge, multi-million, sometimes billion-dollar projects.
It really makes you wonder, right? How does a bank or a lender get comfortable handing over that much cash for just one building? What's their secret for managing what seems like an unbelievable amount of risk?
Well, turns out there is a kind of secret. The people who do these deals, they speak a very specific financial language. It's like a code that lets them measure risk with incredible precision. And today, you and I, we're going to learn the three most important words in that entire language. All right, let's dive in. Probably the easiest way to think about all this is to imagine we're giving the property a complete financial health checkup. See, just like your doctor uses a few different tools to see what's really going on, lenders use three core metrics to get the full picture. First, there's LTV, which tells them about leverage. You can think of that as the property's weight. Then there's DSCR, which is all about cash flow. That's its blood pressure. And finally, you've got debt yield, which checks the lender's fundamental risk. Let's call that its heart rate. Each one tells a totally different but absolutely vital part of the story. So let's start with the first and, maybe the most basic part of this checkup, the loan-to-value ratio, or LTV for short.
LTV is pretty straightforward. It just answers one simple question. How much of this property is the bank's money versus the owner's money? A really high LTV means the borrower has less of their own cash, less skin in the game, which for a lender is a big red flag. It just means more risk if property values dip.
To make this super clear, we're going to follow one single example all the way through. So let's imagine a lender is putting up a $7 million loan for a commercial building that's been valued at $10 million. You just divide the loan by the value and boom, you get a 70% LTV. That extra 30%, that is the lender's safety cushion, their margin of error, right from day one. Okay, on to the next one. If LTV was the property's weight, now we're going to check its blood pressure using something called the debt service coverage ratio. You'll hear everyone call it DSCR. Now, the DSCR answers what is maybe the most important question of all. Does this building actually make enough money to pay its mortgage every year? It figures this out by comparing the net operating income, which is just the profit after expenses, to the total loan payments for the year. So let's go back to our building. Let's say it brings in $600,000 in net operating income, and its total mortgage payments for that year add up to $400,000. You divide the income by the debt payments, and you get 1.5x. Now that X is everything. It means for every $1 the property owes in debt, it's actually generating $1.50 in profit. That extra 50 cents, that is the cash flow buffer that lets lenders sleep at night. And now for our final metric. Think of this one as a quick, clean heart rate check on the loan, purely from the lender's point of view. It's called the debt yield. The debt yield is just a beautifully simple snapshot of risk. You take the property's net operating income and divide it by the total loan amount. What that tells the lender is, hey, if this whole thing goes sideways and we have to take over the building tomorrow, what's our immediate return on the money we lent? It's their worst case scenario number. So what's really cool here is how you can see the different jobs these two metrics do. Yeah, they both use the net operating income, but they're asking different questions. DSCR asks, can this property afford its specific loan? It cares about stuff like the interest rate. But debt yield, it ignores all that. It's a pure, standardized gut check for the lender. It just asks, is this loan, at its core, a safe bet for us? So for our final calculation, we take that same $600,000 in income, and we divide it by the entire $7 million loan, and we get an 8.57% debt yield. That number right there, that tells the lender their direct first-year return if everything went wrong. And the higher that percentage, the safer they feel about the whole deal. Okay, so now we know the three keywords. We can check a property's weight, its blood pressure, and its heart rate. But how does speaking this language actually help anyone make a multi-million-dollar decision? Well, it all feeds into this really clear, logical process. First, everybody involved uses this language to measure the risk from all sides. Then, based on those numbers, the investment firm structures the deal, figuring out exactly how much debt makes sense. And finally, the lender looks at all three metrics, LTV, DSCR, and debt yield all together to make that final call, yes or no.
The point is, these aren't just abstract numbers. They're the actual tools that build the foundation of a deal.
And this really sums it all up perfectly. As one of our sources puts it, these metrics are the language of CRE lending. They help firms structure deals responsibly and make informed investment decisions. It's all about speaking the same language so you can manage risk and, build things that are meant to last.
So there you have it. You've cracked the code on how these massive loans get made in the first place. But once the deal is done and that huge debt is on the books, the job's not over. How do firms manage it all? Well, that is a fantastic question for our next explainer.